ready.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. I am your astrologer, Maria Di Simone, and this is a very special presentation, a very special astrology video that I know so many of you have been waiting a long time for. And now I finally have it together, and I have this incredible presentation that I want you to get comfortable because we're going to have a really nice conversation about alien life, about channeling, and about one very special man in particular who is well known as an alien channeler, an alien communicator. And we're going to start to normalize these conversations because, as you know, Pluto in Aquarius is bringing more of this energy to us in a very pronounced way. And it's going to continue to magnify in the next couple of years as Uranus enters Gemini and these two planets engage. I have talked extensively about this, and I will let you know right from the jump. There are going to be two videos linked in the description box below. For those of you who maybe are just seeing this video out of context, I encourage you to watch my Pluto and Aquarius video about alien communication. I will link it. And then my video, it was a podcast episode actually that I did with my cousin Joseph Peretta, who is a psychic medium like my friend Doreen, who's here. And in that podcast episode, we went through birth charts of well-known psychics, mediums, and mystics to talk about their indicators of psychic and spiritual ability. And the reason why that's going to be interesting to you is because in this video, we are going to focus on a man named Darryl Anka. He is an alien communicator. He channels an alien entity that he calls Bashar. And he's been doing this, I believe, for close to 40 years, a very long time. And I'm here with my closest, my dearest friend, Doreen Malloy, who agreed to join me today. And you're in for a treat, guys, because not only is Doreen an accomplished psychic medium and mystic in her own right, but she is so well educated on extraterrestrial matters, on alien communication, and on Darryl, Anka, and Bashar. So I thought, who better to have this conversation with me than you, Doreen? So welcome, Doreen. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is so much fun. This
Oh,
is great.
you and I are about to normalize alien communication in
Yeah.
all of YouTube land. And this is going to be big because this is going to be normal. You and I both agree. We've had so many conversations about this, probably
Yeah.
not enough.
Probably
And
not. Yeah.
no, definitely not, because I know there's a lot in your brain that you haven't shared with me yet. So I want to give everybody just a little bit of an understanding of how this presentation is going to go. Doreen is here to actually educate us about Darryl, about Bashar, and more in general about her experiences with uh, alien communication, extraterrestrial communication, however you want to, qualify it. And we are going to be focusing on astrology. So the whole presentation is going to be really centered on why the astrology is so compelling. And I'm going to put up Darryl's birth chart. He has accurate birth data that is publicly available, and I'm going to share his birth chart. And I'm going to point out all of the specific psychic, spiritual, mediumship indicators in his chart that make him a valid channeler. And you're going to be able to do your research and make some decisions for yourself after you watch all of this material and digest it. So, Doreen, let's get started with, there's so many parts of you that are similar to my mother in the sense that
Mhm.
you're a born weirdo, like my mom, right? And my mom
Kind of,
has,
yeah.
yeah, she's been passed for 9 years now, but I found this book that from my childhood, this was just one example of how my mother exposed me to otherworldly things from a young age and normalized it for me. And it's called Aliens Among Us by Ruth
Yep.
Montgomery. It's an old 1985 copy. I have so many of my mother's books on psychic, spiritual, mystical, and extraterrestrial content. And so back in the day, in the
Hmm.
80s, this was not normalized at all, right? Not
No.
even what you do for a living, not even
Yeah.
being a psychic or a medium. It was woo-woo. It was out there. You could not easily access information in the
No.
80s, even in the early 90s. Not till I believe it was people like James Van Prague and John Edward, when they came into the picture, then it became more, oh, wow, this is real.
A
And
little bit, yeah. But I mean, just so you know, in the 80s and 90s, if you went to the bookstore to try to find any of these books, whether it was UFOs or any kind of psychic type stuff, metaphysical, there was one bookshelf in the store, one shelf that had a cult written on it. And every book that was available was on that one shelf. That was it. And back then, I remember, I have no idea, I can't remember where I got this, but I came across a catalog with books like this filled with all kinds of metaphysical stuff. And that became my biggest, like I would order from them constantly, and it wasn't with credit cards online, it was sending a check in, the old-fashioned fill out the form. And that's
yeah,
how I got my library started. That's all we had, one shelf in a bookstore. That was
I
it.
actually know exactly what you're talking about because my mother did the same thing. It was the
Yeah.
Rosicrucian
Yep.
Society or the
Hmm.
Rosicrucian catalog that I think you're referring
It
to.
might have been. Yes, it
And,
might have been.
and she
Hmm.
got all of her information from that
Yep.
space too. So I think it's just so cool that there's that parallel from back in the day. But now
Yeah.
you walk into any bookstore
Oh,
or
forget it.
order
Yeah.
on Amazon or Google it, and there'll be, I mean, there have got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of
Yeah.
working psychics and mediums today that are just mainstreamed, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have over 1,000 books in my house. I lost track. I don't have bookcases enough to put them on. So.
I know, I've seen them. So, okay. So now Doreen and I go way back, and how we met was I want to say it's around 20 years ago. I can't remember at this point, but around 20 years ago, we met because I was doing
Close. Yeah.
an astrology study, right, on indicators of psychic and spiritual indicators in a birth chart.
Yes.
I wanted birth data. We were introduced. You were so, yes, I'm all about the studying and the learning and the growing. So you volunteered your birth data. And then you and I just became fast friends. And, we've been friends ever since. And our relationship has evolved. You've seen me grow into an astrologer. I have seen you, do so many things, publishing books and giving events. We've even done events together. But now your interests have turned a little bit into a deeper direction, even more otherworldly direction. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience and interest with extraterrestrial communication?
So this has been a topic of study for me for decades. I mean, I got into this early on, and I'm about the same age as Darryl. And our lives, in a way, kind of parallel because when he started this, and I can describe if you want how he came about all this,
Yeah.
but when he started this, he got into the Seth books. I did the same thing. It was right around the same timing, and I started reading the Seth books and I started to just gather as much information as I could on many different topics. I wanted to learn tarot. I was very interested in mediumship and channeling. The Jane Roberts books, Who Channels Seth, she was a trance channeler. This is what Darryl is. He's a trance channeler.
Can you
Okay,
define
so
that?
yeah, so there's a difference. I can channel as well, but I'm not a trance channeler. He goes into the trance state and allows another person to speak through him. And in this case, it's an extraterrestrial. Okay. And for anybody who might be laughing about that, if you listen to the information that Darryl brings through, or I should say Bashar brings through, it's astounding. It really is astounding. So he's a trance channeler. He took that route. I took the mediumship route, but our backgrounds are similar. So I've been into this now for close to 40 years, where I have been studying. I was tested over and over and over again. I was tested through and certified through the University of Arizona. Then I went into the Windbridge Institute and I did mediumship studies, research studies with them. I was in the Forever Family Foundation. I still do that, where we dedicate our time, to helping people heal through grief and all of that, through mediumship, through our abilities in mediumship. So, I've been at it for a long time, and this area, the UFO area, I have tons of books on UFOs. And I've studied it for a long time. And I've always known that I've always had like this kind of awareness of extraterrestrial consciousness, but never really tapped into it in a big way. I did have an opportunity once, I almost did this. Right after I got out of the University of Arizona Veritas research program that was directed by Gary Schwartz, Dr. Gary Schwartz. Gary called me after that, and he wanted to start a new research project called the Sophia Project. And he only wanted to use known tested mediums, certified mediums. And the whole premise of the study was now to get involved in extraterrestrial communication. Unfortunately, the funding fell through. So we didn't do it. But I was so excited because I really wanted to do that project, you know. But I've been following this for years. You know, I've been doing this for years. Darryl is so it's fascinating to me. I've been doing this almost as long as he is, and I had no idea who he was until about 8 months ago. I discovered him last June. I think it was the end of June or maybe early July. And you might have been right around the same time you did. And for whatever reason, I think I was on one of my group sites on Facebook, one of the Seth group sites, and they
Yeah.
kept talking about this Bashar. I'm like, who the heck is this Bashar? And when I looked him up and I started to watch some of the video clips, oh my God, this guy's amazing. The information that
Yes.
comes through is amazing, mind blowing.
It really
So,
is.
yeah.
Uh,
So,
and
you know, that's my connection.
And so just to kind of ping off of that, and for those of you who want to look more into Doreen and her work, please visit her website, doreenmalloy.com. She has tons of information about everything you can imagine that is
You'll be on my
mystical.
website for three
Yeah,
days. It's
yeah,
good.
you'll be there for a while, but it's well worth it for sure. And so you and I both, I think, discovered him around the same time because I remember I was at your house and we we're having one of our girls' nights, and you started talking to me about Bashar Darryl Anka. I didn't know that that's who I was watching on TikTok because I randomly saw a few videos on TikTok that he was channeling, and I didn't know who he was, but I was fascinated by the information that he was giving. So I was watching some of his videos, but then he goes into this trance state, like you said,
Right.
and his
Right.
eyes are like moving, and he kind of takes on a different presence completely from when he's
Well,
Darryl.
just so you know, all
Yeah,
trans channelers do that. I mean,
yeah.
their presence completely changes,
And
facial expressions, everything.
And I remember telling you, I didn't know that that's what he was doing. So I was finding it distracting because had no idea. I didn't know
Yeah.
the context. I was just seeing the videos and I
Yeah.
was like, wow, he's really interesting. But now I'm getting too distracted by the eyes. So I didn't look into who he was. And then you tell me who he was. And the minute you did, we went down this rabbit hole together and
Yeah.
I found his
Hmm.
birth data in your living room. And I was like, oh, dude, look at his chart. And then it was so much fun. So now,
There was.
let's take a minute to give this little disclaimer for both of us because
Yeah.
neither one of us are official spokespeople for Darryl Anka, for Bashar. We don't know him personally, but we both agree that we feel strongly that his information is valid and that he is a true
Yeah.
channeler. Agreed? Is there anything you want to
Yes,
add to that?
definitely. No, it's really just, I mean, what anything we share today about Darryl is public information, you
Yeah.
know, and even as Bashar, you know, if we talk about anything that came through as Bashar, it's public. You know, there's so many videos, there's tons of video clips out there. You know, people can find them easily on Reels on Facebook. You can watch them on there. Excuse me.
Tank or YouTube,
But
and I'll put a link to
yeah,
his official website in the description box as well.
yeah. Well, he has two, just so people know. Bashar.org is the one where you'll find out about his events and you'll find out about the paneling sessions and tons of videos and stuff on there. He also has another website for himself, darrylanka.com. So he has that one, and I think he has a third one because he's got a couple of different businesses. He has another life
Yes,
besides channeling Bashar. You know,
sure.
he's a filmmaker, and I would urge people also to watch the film it's a documentary film he made. You'll find it on bashar.org. It's called First Contact. It's amazing. It'll answer all your questions about him, about how this all started, and, kind of some of the information coming through. He did a good job on the documentary.
I watched that documentary at your recommendation, and I remember being so impressed with because the video clips that you would see randomly on TikTok or
Yeah,
Facebook, it's him as Bashar. And then when you
yes,
see him as Darryl, the human being, I was like astounded at how well
yeah,
spoken. The
yes,
man makes so much sense. He is just
so
so
much. Yeah.
real.
Hmm.
And I just I he got my respect by watching
Yeah.
that documentary for sure. So, do you want to talk about Darryl, how he came to channel Bashar? Do you want to give like a brief little overview of that?
Yeah, I can do that. And he talks about this just so, your listeners know in the movie First
Yeah,
Contact. He'll
yeah.
go through all this, but I'll give you the just a cliff notes here. So the gist of his story is that in 1973, he had two major UFO sightings. This was at close sightings, like they were not very high in the sky. He could see the ship very, very clearly. They happened about a week apart. He was in his car driving when this happened. He had people in the car with him both times, so it wasn't just his word. They saw it too. And, he didn't understand why this was happening, but that was the impetus. That's what set him on the path of now wanting to know all this information, anything he could find in metaphysics. He read
Mhm.
the Seth books. He started getting books on UFOs. He went down the same rabbit hole I did, and your mom did probably also.
An awakening,
Um,
a psychic
it
awakening.
is an awakening, so he just was in the soup at that point. 10 years after the sightings, he decided to take a channeling class, not because he wanted to become a channel, but because he wanted to just see how the process worked. He wanted to get more information. It was a subject of interest for him. So he took this class, and the teacher in the class went into, a trance state. And he started, speaking through whatever entity he communicates through, his spirit guide or whoever it was. And right in the middle of the session, I guess everybody was in kind of a meditative state because that tends to happen if you're in that kind of environment. All of a sudden, Darryl gets this like download of information. He sees Bashar, he sees his face in his mind's eye, and he gets this whole download of information about this connected to the UFOs, the sightings 10 years before. And Bashar says to him, "Are you ready to work with me now?" Okay. And this is happening in split seconds, just a few seconds. As that's happening, the teacher in the front of the room stops speaking, turns to Darryl and says, "There's an entity here for you. Are you ready to work with him?" So now he
Oh,
knows, Darryl knows, holy crap, that wasn't just me, right? Meanwhile, there's a student next to him, sitting next to him, a young woman, and he looks over at her and she's sketching Bashar's face on her notepad. So that was two instances that confirmed for him, okay, this wasn't just in my mind. I wasn't just dreaming this.
yeah.
And from there, he started to learn to actually channel himself. I mean, it happened rapidly. And there was someone that he knew, I think, from the class. She asked him, "Would you come to my house? I'll bring a bunch of people. You can practice. They'll find it interesting." And it grew like rapidly, rapidly. So, and then that was it. This was what he was doing. And he's been doing this now for 41 years, I think it is, but about 41 years. I think it was 1983 when he started.
And it what's so fascinating and why this is so timely is that he's been doing this for over 40 years, but it's all been leading up to the next couple of years that we're
Yeah.
going into. And
Yes.
and separately that night at your house, I think I had just released that video on Pluto and Aquarius and my predictions for alien communication and what was going to be happening here on planet Earth, very specifically in 2027, 2028.
Mhm.
The astrology is super compelling. And then you told me, well, that is exactly when Bashar is predicting open contact. And then I said to you, what the hell's open contact? Will you
Hmm.
explain?
Yes, and actually, he's not the only one, and this is really fascinating. But anyway, here's what's supposed to happen. He has now narrowed it down to a 5 year window because before that it was like kind of a 10-year window. Now it's been narrowed down. And the window of time was from 2023, no, 20, I think it's from 2024 to 2029 or something like that, right? But he says it could be sooner rather than later. So what he's predicting, and he's not giving detail about this yet, but he says an event will take place at the end of 2026 or early 2027. It's a very short window of time. An event will take place, and that event, according to him, will leave no doubt in our minds that the open contact process has begun. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right around the corner. Okay. And I actually feel like, I mean, if you watch news clips and you look at UFO stuff and everything, it's ramping up like crazy. I mean, we're already seeing that ramp up. It's not just here in the United States, it's everywhere. It's in all different countries, it's worldwide. What I found fascinating, I'm one of those people. I love to connect the dots, right? So I started to realize, okay, who else is talking about this? And there were actually quite a few sources. Um, the first one, I mean, I think everybody knows this anyway. The people of our government have known about ETs, not only known about it and communicated with them, but they've worked with them. Okay, that's been going on actually for decades. And this is part of what they call, the black projects, the hidden stuff, because they never wanted us to know this. They never wanted to release this information. However, the ETs told them in no uncertain terms, it's time. So you better act accordingly with this. And, so there's actually a video clip. There's a man named John Ramirez. He's an ex-CIA agent. And he said, and I quote, this is exactly what he said. Word got out. This is in the government, in these agencies. Word got out that they're showing up in 2027 and we better be prepared. That was his quote. Another source, this one I find fascinating. There was a NASA press release. They released it in Reuters
Yeah.
about SETI. So, for people who don't know, SETI is Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Okay. And the title of the article was SETI, We'll Find Aliens by 2027. Now, here's the kicker with that. That article was published on July 16th, 2002. 2002. Okay. Um, Another source, a lot of people know Dr. Stephen Greer and the work that he does with the Disclosure Project. He's indicating that contact is imminent. He's got a lot of connections, this man, and he's legit. He's one of the people I've followed for years. He's actually releasing a lot of information from his archives now because he wants people to be as prepared as possible. So he's not charging for this. He's just like releasing stuff. Then, of course, you have the congressional hearings, which started, I think, in 2023. They started in the middle of the year. That was the David Grush testimony, if anybody remembers that. This is on UFOs. They call them UAPs, ETs, whatever. That whole ball of wax. You're going to see those hearings ramp up this year
Okay.
because they have to. They have to get this information out there. So I think they will do that in preparation for what's coming. And then finally, there are other channelers who are also picking up on this. Channelers, mediums, including me, I'm picking up on this. You did that video a couple of years ago about this. So your subconscious is also now bringing that to the forefront because you're talking about this from an astrological standpoint. Other astrologers are talking about this as well. So the metaphysical community now has this within our consciousness. Okay. We're on it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I really feel like I've waited my whole life for this, and I'm excited. So I have to stay healthy. I have to be a good girl so that I
Yeah.
can be here when they arrive. So I'm very excited about that. And all of this supports what Bashar has been saying. So it's interesting.
Oh, it really is. And this whole idea of open contact, if you got for you guys listening, this should not be feared. This should be
No, not
embraced.
at all.
because
Yeah,
we
not at all.
we are all collectively agreeing. The astrology strongly says this. Doreen says this. Darryl and Bashar says, and there is not. I don't think there is one reputable metaphysician out there who is trying to share this information to alarm people because there isn't any reason for alarm. The
No, not
aliens
at all.
are not out to hurt us. They are actually connected to us in a deeper
Yeah.
way than we think. So, do you want to talk about that, Dory?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but we are all humans are actually hybrids. We were created by them a very long time ago. And I think we were hybridized actually several times. There are many different races. There's not just one ET race that's here, there are many of them. But people need to think of them as our cosmic brothers and sisters
Yeah.
because that's who they are. We share DNA with them. There are hybrids that have been created from our DNA, from human DNA, okay, combined with theirs. I know one of those civilizations are going to be among the first, some of the first to actually meet us. I know one civilization, they have different amounts, according to what Bashar says. They have different amounts of human DNA. So, of course, the ones that have more human DNA look more like us. There's one civilization that could pass for human. And Bashar even says there are progenitors here on Earth. They
Already.
are here kind of walking among us,
Yeah.
trying to get used to, our civilization. So, some of them are very, very much like us. He claims that the Pleiadians will most likely be the first to make communication with us, to have open contact with us.
Are they the
But
ones that look like us, or do they not look like
they
us?
do also, they do look like us also. Um, from what I've been able to discover, that particular race is much taller, thinner, whiter than we are, like paper white kind of skin.
Okay.
But they have, a fairly human looking structure, so they wouldn't be frightening, in other words. And there
Yeah.
are other civilizations out there that might scare us. An interesting little tidbit, people understand with ETs, they understand the word the grays. The Greys are not actually extraterrestrials. The Greys are humans from our future
Yeah.
who
It's
destroyed who destroyed their reality and had to go below ground and live below ground and mutated, I guess, in their looks. And to try and save their civilizations, interacted, kind of tunneled into other parallel realities, including ours, and have interacted with us and used some of our DNA to save their species. So these are some of the hybrid races that were created.
yeah,
So
this
it's
is
it's very fascinating information.
the whole time space continuum, and it's mind-boggling. It's really hard
It
to wrap
is.
your head around,
It's
but
very hard.
there's this concept of our realities here on Earth, and a big shift that's
Yeah.
coming, and
Yes.
we're all going to kind of be split up based on our reality. Am I saying that right? Um,
Kind of. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to. Here's what I would recommend with that because it really is hard to wrap your head around.
yeah, it
I
is.
would say watch, the video clips of him when people ask questions about that. One of the things that's been incredibly difficult for us as humans to understand is the nature of time because we look at time as linear, and it isn't. Everything is here and now. It's now. Bashar made a joke about this in one of the videos, and he said, if you were accurate about how you describe time and you looked at your watch, it would say now, 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 and, and he was joking about it, and everybody laughed, but he was trying to get that point across that yes, this is time is what we experience in our reality in order to create movement, in order to grow and learn. Otherwise, we would just be like a still shot, like a
Yeah.
photo. Okay. So it's a kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around, but I mean, the more you listen to that kind of conversation and the way he explains it, the more you start to get, okay, I could kind of see what he's saying. I can kind of get it.
So
So,
look into this, guys, and
yeah.
get more educated if you're not already about Darryl Anka and Bashar. And we're going to put his birth chart up in a minute. Do you want? I'm going to ask you, what do you think the best course is now? Should I put his chart up? Should we get into the astrology, or did you want to talk about Bashar's formula and his five laws of creation first?
Let's do the astrology first, and then
Right.
maybe we can end on those because those are
Okay.
really powerful, kind of
Okay.
powerful things.
So we're going to do some astrology, guys, and stick around to the end because this wisdom that Bashar is going to share, well, that Doreen's going to share on behalf of Bashar, is fascinating for all of humanity. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to put up Darryl Anka, the man, his birth chart. And you have to realize that from my perspective as an astrologer, looking at his chart really is just like looking at any horoscope of a psychic medium, a
Yeah.
mystic. The significators are the same. And this is why I have such certainty. Okay. It is not a belief, it is a certainty that this man is channeling some kind of entity, just like Doreen channels spirits, just like people talk about channeling their spirit guides or angels or animals. It is channeling. And this man, we're going to go quickly through the significators. So let me share my screen with you and get his chart here up here. You should see his chart. I have in this folder a handful of some other horoscopes. We're not going to really focus on the other horoscopes because I did an entire podcast where Doreen's chart is on it and Joseph Peretta, Kim Russo, other people. But I am going to compare Darryl Anka's chart very quickly with a very young, well-known psychic medium who is currently hot in the industry, and that is Tyler Henry. So we're going to look at his chart in comparison after Darryl Anka so you can see for yourself how on point the significators are for being a channeler. So Darryl Anka, this is his horoscope. He was October 12th, 1951, Ottawa, Canada, 10:10 p.m. His ascendant is 16 degrees Cancer, and you can see right away that Uranus is angular. Uranus is the great innovator. It is the higher octave of Mercury in astrology. Mercury is the planet of communication. It is the mind. It's the lower mind. It is how we speak, think, collect information, convey it. The planet Uranus deals with the higher vibrations of communication. Whether we're talking about radio waves, whether we're talking about alien communication, mediumship. Uranus is that next level communication that we don't, as humans, typically get with our regular senses, that it requires something else. So the fact that Uranus is angular in his chart and very much connected to his identity and physical self is one strong indicator that this man is tapped into something that is not of the norm. But that's not enough, okay? If you watch my work, you know that I need a lot to be convinced of anything or to make any kind of a prediction. So let's talk about the fact that that Mercury placement is plugged in his horoscope to Mercury itself, the Sun, and Neptune. The fact that he has a Mercury Uranus, this is a square in this case, but any contact between Mercury and Uranus is a contact that I always call the talking to dead people aspect, because it is an immediate understanding that this person is dealing with communication on some otherworldly higher vibrational realm. So Darryl has this square immediately, and he also has the planet Neptune. You see Neptune here. It is making a conjunction to Mercury and his sun. And these are indicators of psychic, spiritual, mystical ability, the ability to channel something that we don't see with our regular earthly senses. And so the Mercury Neptune contact is another indicator of being able to communicate on a special plane in another realm. Sun Neptune, same kind of energy connected to his identity. He happens to have Mercury in aspects to each of the outer planets. So it is also making a sextile to Pluto. So the thing with the outer planets, guys, is that they're all about collective energy. They're not about personal energy. They become personal in a horoscope when they attach to a personal planet like the sun or Mercury. And what it does in this case with Mercury is it allows him to really channel information that is going to influence the collective. That is really significant on a broad level. So those are some of the more obvious indicators. In addition to that, his moon is in Pisces. It's the chart ruler because he has Cancer rising. So this is a key to his soul's most immediate purpose in this lifetime. It is that moon in Pisces exactly at the top of his chart in his career sector. We are talking about someone with a great need to share the spiritual wisdom and information, and it enhances that psychic sponge energy. Having the moon in Pisces, having any personal planet in Pisces really does that. But this is his chart ruler. So if you just gave me his birth chart and didn't tell me who he was, I would be looking at this and I would say this man has significant psychic, spiritual, mystical ability. I wouldn't know that he was specifically channeling an alien, but I would know for sure that this man is capable and has the testimonies and the aptitude to channel something that is not of this realm. So, Doreen, when you look at his chart, do you have any thoughts? Does anything hit you connected to the astrology?
Um, what hits me is how it's connected to me. Like
Good for you.
his
Yeah.
moon is on my sun moon midpoint. And so that's one. And then the first thing I actually noticed was we both have Uranus in the 12th house.
Uh-huh.
So
Just
it's very close. He's at 13 degrees, I'm at 14 degrees,
yeah,
and we both
that
have, Aquarius on the eighth house, and it's just things like that. I mean, I noticed some similarities in our charts. But yeah, it's an interesting chart. He has an interesting chart for
and
sure.
and you can see there are more testimonies of his spiritual ability, of the fact that he is meant to really share some profound truths and wisdom with the world. but
Yes.
but I'm sharing it because I want people to approach Bashar and really Darryl, the man, more and look at him and understand that he is not some quack. This
No.
There is a fine line between mental illness and psychic and spiritual ability. And that is the reason why I did my study many years ago, because I was trying to draw that line and figure it out. And I have learned that you can't draw a line in the sand because you can never tell a person's level of how they're using their energy, meaning they have the choice of their consciousness to use it in the highest vibration manner or to get stuck in the shadow. Now, if Darryl Anka, the human, got stuck in the shadow when he was having his psychic spiritual awakening, he might have turned to drugs or alcohol. He might have descended into insanity because his body, his earthly physical body, wouldn't have been able to handle what was happening to him. And that's common for some people who have strong spiritual ability that can't handle it in this lifetime. But he was not one of them. He is someone who is using this energy in the highest vibration, as you are, as every other psychic and medium. And I'm just going to put Doreen's chart up quickly so you can see the similarities because they have a lot in common with their angles. I'm just going to change the wheel here. So Doreen has Cancer rising just like Bashar does. And you have to realize that's not common. There are actually three medium charts in my files that have Cancer rising. And the chart ruler is the moon in Pisces. You are one, Darryl Anka is one, and Kim Russo is one. And that is very noteworthy, I think, because the being ruled by the moon in Pisces is a big deal. And for you, it's on the ninth house side, which is why you are such a passionate teacher and you're spreading the wisdom in that realm. But there are similarities here, like you said, with Uranus close to the angle. If you were born a little bit earlier, Uranus would be closer. You could have been, a couple minutes here or there. It's
Hmm.
possible. And so the generational placements you have the same because you're around the same age. So Pluto,
Right.
Neptune, and Saturn and Uranus, they're going to be very similar because you're within a year or so of each other. But your Mercury, and I talked about this in my other video, it's at a place called the Aries Point, which is a
Yeah.
very powerful Mercury, and you are able to tap into so much information with that Mercury, and it's retrograde. So it's actually moving towards your chart ruler, the moon and the sun, even in Pisces.
Hmm.
So you have different indicators of psychic and spiritual ability. It's not a cookie cutter thing. There are many different ways to tell. To see this in a person's horoscope, and that's not what this is about. But I wanted to compare Darryl's chart to Tyler Henry
Hmm.
because Tyler Henry has the exact same aspects that Darryl Anka does. And so because so many people love this young man right now, and he's in the mainstream, this to me gives additional testimony for understanding the validity of these channeling aspects in particular. So look, this is also a verified birth time. Tyler Henry has a Sun Neptune conjunction just like Darryl Anka does.
Yeah.
Tyler Henry has Mercury conjunct Uranus in Aquarius, where Darryl has the square. It's just about contact between these
Hmm.
planets that's really making it come out. Tyler also has Mercury in a tight sextile to Pluto. So he's got that similar as well. And in this case, his chart ruler is that Mercury itself. So there are quite a few similarities here where anybody who sees a medium like Tyler Henry, and knows that he is channeling something that is not physically here with us, it's the same energy, guys. There is
Yeah.
no way that you can then look at Darryl Anka's chart and say, no, it can't be. He can't possibly be talking to an alien because that's not comfortable for me. I can't believe in that. That's just crazy. No, listen, if you're going to accept one, you have to open your mind and understand that channeling is channeling. And we are coming into a place in our world collectively with these outer planets shifting in such rare alignments that we are ready on Earth. We are ready for this shift. And that is why people like Darryl are becoming more mainstream to us and in our awareness. So that's a little bit about the astrology. I encourage you, like I said, to watch the other two astrology videos that'll be in the description box if you want more details on that. But let's uh let's talk now about some more of Bashar's wisdom. I'm going to leave
Mm.
that to you. That's all you.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing, really, when you hear him talk. But he's got these two, he calls this the formula, and he shares this with everybody. And this is it's the key to being true to yourself, living your best life, realizing your dreams. And this is the formula for how to do that. Okay. So step one, it's 5 steps. It's very, very quick. Step one is act on your excitement, your passion, whatever it is you're passionate about, whatever's the most exciting to you in the moment. Do this every moment that you can. What's so interesting about that is I've been talking about this for years, long before I knew him. I would tell people this all the time. What are you passionate about? And follow that, do that, because nothing makes you happier than when you're following your passion.
Yeah.
So that's step one. Step two, he says, do this to the best of your ability. Take it as far as you can go until you can't take it any further. At which point, maybe you need to find something new that you find exciting and you're going to act on that. Okay. Take it as far as you can go. Step three is the tough one. This is the hard one.
Uh-huh.
Act on your excitement, your passion, with absolutely no insistence, assumption, or expectation of what the outcome should be. Um, the reason he talks about this is because your higher mind knows what you need. Your physical mind only knows what you want. Sometimes they could be the same thing,
Yeah.
but they're usually not. So he says you act on your passion with no insistence about what the expectation should be. That can be hard for a lot of people,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Because we're control
um,
freaks.
because we're control freaks. Exactly. Step four is choose to remain in a positive state regardless of what happens. Okay. No matter what happens, you want to stay in a positive state. And step five, the last one, is constantly investigate your belief systems because you really want to try to release and replace the unpreferred beliefs. And we all have them. Okay. This is baggage. Really, that's what he's referring to. We call it baggage, right?
Yeah.
These are fear based beliefs, beliefs that are not in alignment with who we really prefer to be. So we need to find a way to, release that and replace that. And the only way you do that is to constantly investigate what your belief system is. And that's it. That's the formula. Um, and when people have said they try really, really hard to follow that, and
Yeah.
they've actually seen a major difference. They've
I,
seen a major difference, like it plays out almost immediately. And Darryl talks about this. I've seen a lot of interviews with Darryl, not being Bashar, just being him. And he talks about this. He says, I follow this, and my life has changed totally with that. So it's kind of cool, to have it as a formula. And that's what he calls it, the formula.
Formula for a happy life, a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And I think like you, I kind of and maybe some of you out there watching this also have kind of lived much of this formula intuitively, or at least tried to. And I find that whenever I do, my life works. It is
Yeah.
peaceful, it is balanced, it is just everything is as it should be. And
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried about anything. So there is something to
Exactly.
that.
Oh,
Now,
definitely. Definitely.
before you get into the five laws of creation, which that's different, right? That's something
Yes,
different.
that's different. That's different.
Before you get into that, I actually forgot to share something about the astrology. And
Okay.
I can't show it on my screen. I have to do it on my app because this is something that I learned when I was in England at an astrology conference. When did I go? I think September. And I got to see my friend and colleague Rick Levine, and he gave a presentation and talked about this. And then he and I talked about Darryl Anka's chart. So let me just find it. Give me a second because you know how it is when you're looking for something, you can't find
Yes,
it.
of course.
So yeah, here, okay, so here it is. I found it. So Rick Levine has done a lot of work on the minor aspects and their power. And he has done incredible research, in particular on the septile aspect. It is not a major Ptolemaic aspect. So it's not the square, the trine, the opposition, not like that.
Okay.
The septile, it's like a circle with an S. And you have to set your astrology software or your time passages app or whatever app you're using to the minor show the minor aspects to see if you have any septiles in your chart. The septile aspect is an aspect that is known to bring significant supernatural and spiritual ability. And in Rick Levine's research, he has found that the charts that he's looked at, who are psychics, mystics, mediums, have pronounced septiles in their horoscope. So I
Mhm.
wanted to look at Darryl Anka's chart to see if he had any. And I found them while I was listening to Rick's lecture in England in September. And I was looking at Darryl's chart and I'm like, oh, I didn't talk to Rick about this. I wonder if he knows about Darryl. And so sure enough, we were talking, bullshitting later after, socializing in social time, not learning
Right.
time. He's like, oh yeah, I know Darryl Anka and blah blah blah. And so I shared the septiles with him, and he was like, of course. And so Darryl has Venus septile the ascendant. Any septiles to the ascendant is very hard to achieve, just so you know, because the math has to be perfect. Your ascendant changes degree literally every 4 minutes. So to
Right.
have a minor aspect like a septile, really, really rare. But he also has another septile. It is a septile between Mars and Uranus. And both of these septiles add to the supernatural ability, to this connection to some other realm. And that is a fascinating tidbit in astrology to look into. And you could also look into certain midpoints. You mentioned that his moon was at your sun
His
moon.
moon. Yeah.
So there are certain midpoint pictures in your birth chart, guys, that you could look at that also support psychic, spiritual ability, mystical ability, channeling, all of that. I can't get into everything, but I wanted to mention that because I thought that was fascinating. Now let's talk about Bashar's 5 laws of creation. What's that all about?
Okay. So again, just 5 things. Okay. Number one is you exist.
Mhm.
You have always existed. You will always exist. Okay. He's so interesting because he defines it this way. He says non-existence, by its very definition, cannot exist. Okay. The universe has no beginning and no end, and neither do you. So, number one is you exist. Number two, everything is here and now. What does that mean? There's no past. There's no, right. There's no future. There is only now. And what you perceive, according to him, what you perceive as the past are other parallel realities. He talks about parallel realities a lot, which enables you to kind of experience this sensation of time and movement, as I mentioned before. So everything is happening in the same moment, just from a different point of view. Okay. Without shifting, if you don't shift through parallel realities, there would be no way to experience like the physical system in any way. You wouldn't learn anything new. You wouldn't be able to attain growth. So everything is here and now. That's number two. Number three, the one is all and the all is one. Every human being is simply a different expression of all that is, which in many metaphysical circles, we understand that to also be interpreted as God. Okay, all that is. Therefore, every person is both. You want to think of yourself as both the creator and the creation.
Yeah.
And you think of yourself, or try to, as a fragment of all that is, because that's what we all are. So, number three is the one is all, the all are one. Number four, what you put out is what you get back.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of know that one. We're
Yeah.
familiar with that. It's really self-explanatory. Some people tend to think of that statement as karma, but the definition of karma is actually slightly different, the way he explains it. But number four is what you put out is what you get back. And number five, everything changes except the first 4 laws. So you're going to go through change all the time, constant change. And, when I counsel people and I do readings for people, and I know that they're going through major changes, I'll often say this because change is not easy for a lot of people. It can be really, really challenging times, but we need it. It's good. Change is good.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. And people just fight so hard not to have anything change. But everything changes. And with this, except the first 4 laws. So these are the 5 laws of creation. They're really very simple. And when he talks about this, these 5 laws of creation are throughout the universe. It's not just for us.
Right.
The same thing as the formula throughout the
Uh-huh.
universe.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what civilization or race or, you know, where you fall in that picture. This is the simplicity of it. Which I think is one of the things that I really liked about him, because when he puts these things out there, and he explains it, it's so simplistic. It's easy. He just makes it very easy. So he's an interesting guy.
And
He's a
he's
very interesting
funny.
guy.
And when he channels Bashar, the alien dude, he's funny.
Yes.
I mean,
He,
you will laugh.
yes. Yeah, he there's a reel if you want. I'll send it to you. One
Oh,
of those short reels of just clips of him where he just says the funniest things and the audience just goes nuts laughing. It's like a bloopers reel, kind of
yes.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I'll
Send it to
show you
me.
that.
Send it to me. I'll share it. I'll share it. I'm going to have so many
It's
links for you guys in this
it's
description
great.
box. So is there anything else that you wanted to cover about Bashar about uh, his wisdom? Like, did you want to talk about how he answers a question or anything like that, or do you want
So
people to
there
just go
was,
look?
yeah, there's one that is a standout for me, but I love listening to how he answers a lot of questions. And by the way, his response to a lot of questions is, are you familiar with the formula? You know, and he'll kind of start there. But just to give you an example of his wisdom, um, Bashar has said many times, every one of us is a reflection of all that is. Excuse me. And at one of his events, let me take a little sip here.
Do it all day long. I'm with you.
My throat is dry. Um, at one of his events, someone asked him about Jesus
Mm.
and if his teachings were misunderstood. And I thought his response to this was so thought provoking. So I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said something like this. He said the people of that time period did not understand Yeshua, as he calls him. When he said, I am the way, what he meant was be like me. But he wasn't trying to create followers. He wanted them to be leaders. In other words, he wasn't trying to create Christians. He wanted people to realize that they're all Christ's. And I heard this and I went, holy moly. That was a very profound statement, I thought. So it's kind of an example of how he might answer a question, but he does a lot of stuff like that where he brings clarity to things that we here on earth struggle with constantly. And not just some of us, all of us, we all struggle. We're all here trying to figure everything out, let's figure out life. And, his responses are really, really interesting. So I urge people to watch his little videos, the clips, watch the documentary First Contact. I'm very excited because, Darryl lives in LA and most of his events are in Sedona, Arizona, but he's going to be on the East Coast in June. And I think it's June 14th,
Yeah.
and he will be in New Jersey, but it says they don't have a location listed yet. It says New York City metro area, which is the area I'm in. So I
Yeah.
know it's local for me. So I'm definitely going to be there and we'll definitely meet him.
And I'll be with you.
So, yeah, excellent.
Hey, I have the date saved.
Okay, save the date because that's exciting
Yeah,
because he
that's
hasn't been
yeah,
on the East Coast in almost 10 years. So yeah,
yeah,
that's going to
that's
sell out very quickly.
and I think it's going to be so cool to see, especially at this time. And when you gave the whole example of Jesus and his explanation, all I kept thinking is his chart with his Mercury and the patterns. And
Yeah.
people with those patterns, they break us out of the mental boxes that we put ourselves in. And that
Yes.
I think is what Darryl as Bashar is doing for us in humanity is he is helping to break us out of the mental boxes
Yeah.
that are keeping us from embracing the massive possibilities that are within us, in front of us, around us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I
Mm-hmm.
really think his gift is as a channeler. And so, do you have any final thoughts about what you think it's going to be like when open contact happens and alien communication really becomes normalized?
Well, I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I mean, you're going to have people like us who really embrace this stuff and we're excited about it. We're waiting for this. Then there's going to be a group of people who kind of open to it, but more neutral. Like they're not going to be frightened by it, but maybe it's not like the thing on the top of their list that they think about all the time. You know what I mean? They're not
Yeah.
metaphysically thinking people,
Yeah.
so to speak. And then you're going to have a group, of course, that is going to, be terrified of it and not know what to make of it. The other thing I'm concerned about right now is how the government is going to handle this. Although Bashar has actually said they're not going to be able to stop this. So no matter what they do, we've already got that figured out. But there's been something in the works for decades where they might try to pull this like false flag thing, like there's an alien invasion and they're going to kill us all and we should be
Mm.
terrified. And But you know
Don't
what?
be.
People are on to them. People are on to
Mhm.
this, nonsense, basically. So I think what's going to happen is over the next 1 to 2 years, really right now, you're going to see a lot of this information coming out in a lot of different areas, as
Mhm.
well as sightings worldwide. I mean, right now, you obviously about the drone sightings, right? In New Jersey, which started in
I know.
what was that I think it was mid-November it started. And
They
I'm in
were
New
right here on
Jersey.
the islands. Yeah.
Right. So, but they've been all over the East Coast. It wasn't just New Jersey. They were
Yeah.
talking about New Jersey because we had an influx of a lot of them. And Bashar was asked about that, and he said most of them were military, um, you know, United States drones. But he said there also were some of our ships around and other, trying to help with whatever it was. They were looking for something. We know they were searching for something here, some kind of, material or whatever that got into the United States, might have been radioactive or whatever it was. But there was so much focus on New Jersey that they weren't talking about everywhere else. And it got crazy everywhere else. It's like they're all over.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of preparing people, I think, you know.
Yeah. This
So
is,
it's a time of preparation. Open your mind, open your heart,
don't be
you
scared.
know, don't be scared. Meditate on it. Realize that, these are our cosmic brothers and sisters, and it is time for this to come out. They've
Yeah.
made the decision that it's time for it to come out. So the ETs are making this decision for us, you know. And so
To help us.
trust, yes. Oh yeah, our world is going to change
Mhm.
like unbelievably. I mean, once they are here, these civilizations have the ability to heal anything that we suffer with on Earth. There's no sickness. They live hundreds and hundreds of years, a lot of these civilizations. They're going to bring us technology. One of the things Bashar talked about, I just went nuts over this. I was so happy to hear this. One of the gifts, he said, that they will give us, this will be one of the first gifts that they share with us, is our history of the earth and its people, because most of that has been lost. And they will be able to do this in a holographic way. Like we'll be able to, like you would go to a movie and watch it. And he says, you'll actually be able to see what Atlantis looked like. You'll be able to see what dinosaurs look like. You'll be able
Oh,
to see
man.
civilizations that you have no idea even existed. You'll be able to see them. They're going to share all that with us, the history of the people of the earth, because it goes back way, way, way back. I mean, what do we have? 6,000 years of history that we know about?
I can't wait
Goes
for
way
that.
back.
Get your
I'm so
popcorn
excited.
ready.
Yes, it will be a popcorn day.
That's gonna be amazing. Wow.
It will be. Yeah.
I I think that you and I set out to accomplish something on YouTube where
Yeah.
we're sharing information that isn't quite being talked about in an everyday way. And hopefully, this conversation will become one of the cornerstone conversations over the next
Yeah.
couple of years that people refer back to as they see what is happening in our world with alien communication and open contact. And this man, Darryl Anka, who channels Bashar, is certainly a very special part of, I think, bringing that to us. And
He
I
is.
want to,
Yeah.
and people like you are too. I mean, you're
Mhm.
alive for a reason right now, and
Yes, we all are.
we
So,
all
so
are.
think about that.
Yeah.
Everyone who is alive today
Hmm.
chose to incarnate into this time period to experience this. It's not
Correct.
just us.
Correct.
So,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. We're just the ones that are really excited about the ride.
how we are.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Doreen, for joining me with this conversation. And for those of you watching, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about this. Remember, keep it respectful. And as always, I hope you share the channel, subscribe, hit that like button. It does something for the YouTube algorithm. Don't ask me what, I have no idea. Because I am not a channeler. I talk to planets. I stick to what I do. I channel planets.
You talk to planets, I talk to dead people, and Darryl talks to aliens, and it's all good.
it all works out. It all works
Yeah.
out, right? So thank you guys for watching, and be sure to check out the description box for all those extra videos. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.